They'd marked me as dead. That's what the woman at the post office said, like she was telling me the day's forecast. She didn't even glance up at first, just kept typing with her bright nails clicking, eyes fixed on the screen. "I'm sorry, ma'am," she murmured. "According to our system, the recipient is deceased." It took a second for my mind to catch up. At 78, I don't always catch every word, but I caught that one. "Deceased," I echoed, blinking through my glasses. "What did you just say?" Now she finally looked at me, uncertainty flickering. "That's what it shows here. Nora Mason, born July 3, 1947, status deceased. Records updated 3 months ago." I stood there, breathing, gripping the yellow slip that meant a registered envelope waited for me. Probably my monthly benefit check, the last predictable thing left in my life besides tea at 6. "You can see I'm alive?" I said quietly. The clerk darted her eyes around, as if hoping for a supervisor. No one came. Only the hum of an old ceiling fan overhead. "Yeah, obviously. I don't know how this happened," she said, and then, perhaps out of sympathy or maybe just to avoid an argument, handed me the envelope. "You should go to the benefits office," she added. "If they think you're dead, they'll stop sending these." Too late, I thought. The stamps were faded. The envelope had been rerouted and returned before it reached me. The return address was one I didn't know. Outside, the sun pressed down. A school bus hissed to a stop and children spilled out laughing. I stood there unseen. Someone hadn't just drifted away from me. Someone had formally, legally, erased me. I walked the half-mile home to my rented bungalow on Sandalwood Drive, where I'd lived since 1986. My knees ached, but I didn't hurry. The truth needed to settle. The recycling bin lay toppled again. The porch step was still broken. No one had fixed anything. Inside, the house was quiet, orderly, and old. Photos lined the shelf. Arthur in uniform, Marion with pigtails, Dylan at 6 in a Halloween cape. Dylan's 15 now and hasn't visited for over a year. I sank into my chair and tore the envelope open. It wasn't a check. It was a letter addressed to the estate of Nora Mason. Benefits terminated as of March 1st, due to notification of death. To appeal, submit proof of error. Someone had sent in a death certificate. That isn't a typo. I reached for my papers, birth certificate, insurance, benefit stubs, all correct. Yet somewhere, someone had rewritten the ending of my story. My phone buzzed. Dylan's voice came through, deeper than I remembered. "Grandma, you okay?" "I just found out I died," I said. "What?" "They told the government I died so they could take my checks. I think your mother had something to do with it." Silence. "I don't know anything about that," he said finally. I believed him. I did not believe Marion. I hung up. If they wanted me gone, they were about to see how wrong they were. The house felt hollow. Not peaceful. Hollow. I put the kettle on. Tea doesn't solve problems, but it lets you think. The letter lay on the table beside the misaddressed envelope. The estate of Nora Mason. They hadn't even double-checked. I stared at the curtains. Arthur's favorite, sun-bleached but still hanging on. Marion used to sit under them reading when she was 12. Now she's 48, living in a beige house 2 towns away with an HOA. She used to visit. Then it stopped. First Dylan's school, then work, then nothing. Estrangement isn't loud, it creeps in. Still, I sent cards. I baked lemon bars for Dylan every Easter. I even wrote Marion into my will. A dead woman's will now. I opened the drawer with the rubber bands and old keys, pulled out my black notebook. Line after line, braces for Dylan, a car for Marion, school supplies. I never said no. I thought they needed me. I thought they loved me. The tea went cold. I poured it out and stepped outside. The garden was losing to weeds. Frank from 2 doors down was tending his roses. "Morning, Nora," he called. "Afternoon," I corrected. He chuckled. "Time's slippery these days. Do you still do odd jobs?" I asked. "Lawn work. Maybe something with a hammer. Sore. What's wrong?" "I'm not dead," I said. Frank blinked. "What?" "I need a witness at the benefits office tomorrow. Just in case they don't believe me." "That's fraud," he said, face darkening. "Tell that to the system," I muttered. "I'll drive you," he said simply. That night I barely slept. Status, deceased, echoed in my head like an eraser across a page. At 3 a.m. I sat at my desk and opened a fresh page. At the top I wrote, "I am alive. Someone is lying. I will not be erased." The wind rattled the window like a tapping finger. They thought I'd go quietly, but I'd raised a child, buried a husband, built a life from scratch. I wasn't about to let anyone, especially my own daughter, bury me before my time. The benefits office waited in a squat gray building behind the supermarket, tired even at 9 a.m., and I was ready. The overhead lights hummed faintly, casting a pale glow over a row of plastic chairs. People sat slumped in them, waiting not only for paperwork but, it seemed, for a scrap of dignity or certainty. Frank sat next to me, flipping through an old fishing magazine. He hadn't asked anything on the drive, only nodded when I'd said what I needed. Someone real who could stand beside me and say, yes, this woman is alive. When the loudspeaker called B74, I rose slowly, knees aching, and stepped to the counter. The clerk couldn't have been more than 25. Heavy eyeliner framed her eyes. Her badge read, Chantel. "What can I help you with today?" she asked without looking up. "I need to correct a record," I said evenly. "Someone filed a death certificate under my name. I'm still breathing." Her fingers froze on the keyboard. She glanced at me, then back at the screen, typing. "Name, Nora Mason, July 3rd, 1947. Her brows knit.
Ah, yeah.
"It says you were declared deceased February 18. Certificate on file?" "Who submitted it?" "We don't usually have that information." She clicked deeper into the system, tilting the monitor slightly away from me. "I'll need a supervisor," she murmured, vanishing through a door. The waiting area smelled of sanitizer and stale air. A toddler whimpered 2 seats down. Frank looked up, reading my expression. "You okay?" "No," I said, "but I will be." The supervisor appeared, silver hair, brisk voice. "Mrs. Mason," she began, "our records show a family member reported your death to Vital Records. Your benefits were stopped under that notification." "So," I said slowly, "you took someone's word for it." "There was a signed death certificate. May I see it?" "That's not standard procedure," she replied. "I'm not standard procedure," I snapped. "I'm the one you declared dead." Frank straightened in his seat. "I've known her 20 years, he said firmly. "She's alive." The supervisor folded her hands. "You'll need to complete Form 8062A, provide proof of life, government ID, a utility bill, and then we can start a review. It may take several weeks. Until then, the account stays suspended." "And the checks already sent?" I asked. "That may require a separate investigation," she said carefully. I could tell she knew more than she'd admit. "I want a copy of the certificate," I said. "You'll have to request it from Vital Records," she answered. "Fine," I said, smiling without warmth. Frank and I left without speaking. Outside, the sky had turned gray and smelled of rain. "They're stonewalling," he said as we reached the truck. "Yes," I replied. "I'm used to that." He glanced at me as I buckled in. "What are you going to do?" "I'm going to find out who signed my death certificate," I said. "And then I'm going to remind them what it means to be alive." At home, I dialed the department of Vital Records. The hold music chirped cheerfully, insultingly. When an agent finally answered, I gave my information. "I'd like a certified copy of the death certificate issued in my name," I said. "Mom? Are you the next of kin?" "No," I said calmly. "I'm the deceased." 3 days later, a plain envelope arrived. I slid it open with trembling hands. There it was: Nora Evelyn Mason, female, born July 3, 1947, died February 18, 2025, complications from pneumonia. I hadn't had so much as a cold in years. At the bottom, a signature informant, Marion L. Whitaker, my daughter. The same looping script she'd used on school notebooks. No mistaking it. I pressed the paper flat, staring. I didn't cry. Instead, I went to the hall closet and opened the fireproof box Arthur and I had kept. Inside lay our marriage license, the deed to a burial plot, updated wills. Marion's name appeared everywhere, along with a power of attorney I'd signed after hip surgery 3 years ago. "Temporary," she'd said. I'd never revoked it. "Frank stopped by with groceries at noon. Eggs and the rye bread you like," he called, then saw my face. "What happened?" I handed him the certificate. He read it twice, jaw tight. "She filed this." I nodded. "She used my power of attorney to file a death certificate, reroute my checks. God knows what else." "You need a lawyer," Frank said quietly. "I need a lawyer, a banker, and a priest," I muttered. He almost smiled, then didn't. You going to confront her? Not yet, I said. First, I want to see how far she went. That afternoon, I called my bank. Thank you for calling Meadow Valley Credit Union, chirped the voice on the line. I need to check my account activity, I said, after giving my ID silence. Your account was closed February 27th, the clerk said. Funds transferred to a joint account under Marion and Dylan Whittaker. The room tilted. Was that done using power of attorney? Yes, ma'am. We have the document on file. No one called me. I'm so sorry, but since you were reported deceased, we followed protocol. I hung up. Everything Arthur and I had built, gone. I didn't sleep that night. By dawn, I'd made up my mind. They thought I was too old, too quiet, too dead to fight. They were wrong. The next morning, I dressed as if for church, navy blouse, Arthur's pearl earrings, black heels I hadn't worn in years but still fit. Some things hold their shape, even after neglect. I packed a folder, the forged certificate, bank notice, benefit statements, and the old power of attorney with Marion's signature. Then I called a cab. Frank offered to drive, but I needed to do this part alone. The lawyer's office was a brownstone near the courthouse, brass plate by the door, stairs worn smooth with use. Inside it smelled of paper and ink. Mrs. Mason, the receptionist said, peering over her glasses. You're here to see Mr. Harriman? Yes, I said. He's expecting me. I'd found his name in Arthur's old address book. Joseph Harriman. And I was ready. He'd helped us plan our estate years ago, back when Marion was still at home and macaroni casserole counted as a special dinner. In those days, he was new in town. Now his hair was white, and his calm expression didn't waver even at hard news. He rose when I entered. Nora, good heavens, it's been years. Too many, I said. Thank you for fitting me in. Always, he replied, gesturing to the chair. What's brought you here? I slid a folder across his desk. He read each page slowly, nodding. When he reached the death certificate, he paused. She submitted this. Yes. And all the transfers? Using the pie, I nodded. He leaned back, removed his glasses, and pinched the bridge of his nose. That isn't just wrong, it's criminal. What do you want to do, Nora? It was the first time anyone had asked since Arthur died. I want the power of attorney revoked, my accounts reopened, and charges filed if there's a case. There is, he said quietly. He mapped out the steps. Letters to banks, a notarized affidavit, a court petition to reverse the declaration of death. It'll take time, he warned. But it can be done. He didn't look at me like I was fragile. He looked at me like I was a force. You'll need a statement, he added, about when things changed with your daughter. She got tired of waiting, I whispered. Waiting for me to go. He didn't write it down, but I saw his pause. For an hour we reviewed forms. A paralegal began drafting the revocation documents. He gave me a list of agencies to contact Social Security, DMV, Medicare, everywhere I'd been listed as dead. It would take time, he said again, but it was possible. When I left, I felt steadier. I stopped at a diner near the courthouse, ordered coffee and toast. The waitress didn't know me or care. That felt good. Halfway through, I wrote on a napkin, "You buried me with a signature. Now watch me dig myself out." I folded it and slipped it into my pocket. Not a letter yet, but one day it would be. The Social Security office smelled of plastic and fatigue. A man in front argued over a lost ID. A woman behind sighed like it could speed the line. My folder sat on my lap. Frank had offered to come, but some fights are solo. Name? The clerk asked when my number was called. Nora Mason. She typed, squinted, then stopped. You were declared deceased. So I've heard, I said. But as you see, that's a bit premature. I handed over my license, a utility bill, Mr. Harriman's affidavit confirming I was legally and physically alive, and a fresh photo. She examined each, then turned back to her screen. You understand this takes time? Yes. And you might not get back pay without an appeal. I'm appealing everything. She nodded slowly. I'll escalate this. You'll get a letter in 10 to 14 business days confirming review. Other agencies pull from this database, so it may take a while. I can wait, I said. I've waited this long. It was drizzling when I left. Street slick quiet. At home a voicemail waited. Hi, Mom. It's Marion. We need to talk. Some things changed. Just call me, okay? She didn't say I'm sorry. She didn't say I miss you. Just, things changed. I brewed tea and opened the envelope of bank statements. Mortgage payments, tuition, spa visits, restaurants, a weekend rental. Over 48,000 gone in 3 months. They hadn't just pretended I was gone. They celebrated it. The next morning, the electric company confirmed my service had been transferred to the new account holder, Marion Whittaker. All utilities had shifted quietly under deceased. She wasn't only taking my money, she was taking my house. At my landlord's, Mr. Kohler blinked in shock when he saw me. Your daughter said you'd passed, he murmured. She's been paying with my funds, I said evenly. I'm very much alive. He gave me copies of everything she'd filed, including a line that cut me, "We'll be clearing the house by summer." Clearing it, like it was storage. On my way home, I passed a florist, Lucy's shop. She stepped out, eyes wide. Mrs. Mason, I thought. I get that a lot, I said. Apparently, I've been haunting people. She hugged me, the first real touch in weeks. Over tea in the back room, I told her everything. Not the legal parts. Just the truth. My daughter had erased me. She wasn't always like that, I said softly. She used to braid my hair when I was sick. Lucy only squeezed my hand. That night, I looked around at the house Marion planned to clear. The armchair where Arthur had napped. The bookshelf of his mysteries. The framed cross-stitch from my sister. Proof I had lived. And I wasn't letting anyone sweep it away. Mr. Harriman's office smelled of lemon polish and resolve. When I walked in again, he set aside a folder. I was just about to call you, he said. There's been progress, he said, motioning for me to take a seat. I placed my expanding folder on the chair beside me. The power of attorney has been revoked, and we filed with probate to overturn the presumption of death. Normally, it drags on for months, but with the evidence we submitted, the court agreed to fast track. Within 10 business days, your legal status will be restored. It should have felt like victory, but all I felt was heavy. Oh, right, I said. What comes after? He explained the banks, the landlord, the benefit offices, all would be forced to update their records. After that, we could push for charges. He hesitated before asking, have you decided how far you want to take this? I held his gaze. People had circled that question for weeks. Do you really want to do this to your own daughter? I want it on record, I said. Not an accident, not a misunderstanding, fraud, theft, abuse. He nodded. Then that's what we'll pursue. I also need to change my will, I added. His brows lifted. Understood. I laid out a page. What remains of my assets? None go to anyone who signed me out of existence. Marion is removed. I paused. So is Dylan. He blinked, surprised. I sat back, then shook my head. No, not yet. He's still a child in this. I don't know if he was aware, but if I find he knew, he's excluded too. There can be a conditional clause, he suggested. I nodded, feeling the finality settle. A door had shut behind me. Maybe it couldn't be opened again. When I left his office, I went to the library. My card still worked. Marcy, who once ran the knitting circle, looked up and gasped. Mrs. Mason, everyone said. I know what they said. I cut her off. She leaned forward, cheeks flushed. You're here! I softened. I need books. Elder fraud. Identity recovery. Abuse of power of attorney. She didn't ask more questions. I walked out with 4 thick volumes and a flame in my chest I hadn't felt in years. At home, Dylan's voice was on my machine. Grandma. Mom's panicking. Said there's trouble with the banks. Told me not to call, but I don't know. This feels wrong. If you're okay, please let me know. It was the first time I heard doubt in him. I didn't call back. Not yet. But I saved the message. The courthouse was colder than memory. Beige walls, cheap chairs, a table where lies and truths collided. My lawyer had every document ready. Proof of who I was. Evidence of what had been done. Across the room, the registrar's representative shuffled papers uneasily. A dead woman was sitting before her. Petitioner requests reversal of wrongful death designation. The clerk read. The judge peered down with drooping lids and a surprisingly kind voice. Mrs. Mason, you've submitted medical affidavits, testimony, proof of identity. This is the most thorough case of not being dead I've seen. A small laugh stirred through the room. I'd laugh, I said. If it hadn't taken 8 weeks to convince people I was still breathing. He scanned the file, disturbed. Filed by Marion Whittaker. Power of attorney, now revoked. He looked up. Would you like to make a statement? I stood, knees aching but voice steady. My daughter declared me dead. Not because of illness, not grief, because I was inconvenient, because she wanted what I had before I had the courtesy to die. She drained my accounts, transferred my lease, rerouted my utilities, and erased me from the record. This wasn't a clerical error. It was deliberate, and I've spent every day since proving something that never should have required proof. I'm not here for pity. I'm here for my name. The gavel struck. Petition granted. Let the record show Nora Evelyn Mason is legally alive. Status restored within 5 business days. Welcome back, Mrs. Mason. Outside, sunlight felt sharp. 1 battle won, my lawyer said. 1? I agreed. What now? Press charges, I answered. Let the DA see what she did. At home, the phone rang again. Dellen's voice cracked. Grandma, Mom's saying you're trying to ruin her. Did she really do it? She filed my death, I said flatly. And you tell me, Dylan, what did you think happened when I disappeared, but the checks kept coming? He whispered, I don't know. You do, I said softly. You just didn't ask. Silence. Then, I'm sorry. Can I come see you? Not yet, I said, and hung up. Later, I stood on Marion's porch. The look on her face when she opened the door, shock, then panic, then something unnameable. Nora, she stammered. What are you doing here? I walked in without invitation. The house gleamed with stolen comfort, Arthur's chair, my blanket, even my cinnamon jar filled with lavender. I didn't think you wanted this stuff, she said defensively. You were gone. You filed my death certificate. You took my accounts. You transferred my lease. You buried me? Her voice cracked. I didn't mean for it to go this far. No, I said. You thought it would go quietly. In the kitchen, she finally whispered. I was struggling. Tuition, the mortgage. I didn't know how to stop. That, I said. I believe. Are you going to press charges? She asked. I already have. She looked at the perfect house around her, then back at me. I was tired of waiting, she said softly. Not cruel, just true. I walked out. The sky was gray, the trees unmoving, and for the first time in months, I felt light. Dellen opened his apartment door, looking both older and younger, guilt heavy on his shoulders. His place smelled of ramen and detergent. He fidgeted. I didn't think you were really gone, he admitted. Mom made it sound like maybe you wanted to be left alone, that you were better off. She told the state I was dead, I said. She stole everything I had. He dug through his backpack, pulled out a small box. Inside was a chipped ceramic frog I used to keep by the kitchen window. I found it in Mom's garage. She called it clutter. I thought you'd want it. The frog warmed in my hand. He whispered, I don't know how to fix it. You can't, I said. But you can stop pretending. That's where it starts. He nodded slowly. I didn't want her to do it, but I didn't stop her. And that, I said quietly, you'll have to live with. The silence that followed said more than either of us could. It wasn't cold, only still. Do you hate her? He asked. I don't know, I said. Once I loved her so deeply I refused to see who she was becoming. Now I see it clearly. He stared at his shoes. I want to see you again, even if it's different. I rose slowly, setting the little frog on his windowsill. We'll see. As I reached the door, he stood too hesitant. I'll call you? If you do, I said. Don't wait for me to be gone first. Then I left. The bank manager's office was brighter than I expected. Wide windows, flowers, a dish of mints on the desk. Richard Burney, gray suit, nervous smile, stood as I entered. Mrs. Mason, please sit. I placed a fresh folder on the desk. He cleared his throat. The court confirmed your reinstatement. You're now fully recognized in our systems again. I apologize for everything. You approved the withdrawals, I said quietly. Over 70,000 vanished. We acted on what we had, the death certificate, the power of attorney, he explained. That authority is void now, I replied. And I want every dollar traced. Every account connected to me reviewed. He nodded. The audit is underway. Funds were funneled into a joint account with Ms. Whittaker's son. some used for direct purchases. We're filing fraud reports and will work with law enforcement. Good. I slid him another document. I want a new trust opened, in the name of Eloise Matten. He blinked. Not family. No. A friend's granddaughter. Studying social work. She's never tried to take from me. That's why she deserves it. He skimmed the form. All future deposits redirected there. Yes. Pension, retirement, savings, and lock it down. No joint access, no substitutions. Understood, he said quickly. I leaned back, watching sunlight stretch across the desk. I used to visit here monthly. Brought cookies sometimes. Marion liked seeing her name on the statements. He lowered his eyes. I gave her too much, I said. Now I'm giving what's left to someone who never asked. At home, I pulled Arthur's old suitcase from the closet. Inside I stacked the voided death certificate, court order, audit papers, the new trust agreement, and on top, the photo of us barefoot in the grass on our 30th anniversary. It wasn't wealth, but it was proof I had fought. That night, I left the door unlocked, not from carelessness, because I no longer feared someone stealing what was mine. The next morning Frank arrived with the paper. You'll want to see this. He laid it on the table. Headline: Local woman declared dead, fights back, wins case. There was my grainy courthouse photo, squinting at sunlight, cardigan caught in the wind. I read aloud, Nora Mason, 78, was declared dead earlier this year by her daughter. She is now alive in the eyes of the law and seeking justice. The article spoke of elder financial abuse, exploitation by family. It quoted words I hadn't said exactly, but felt they thought I was gone. I was only quiet. Frank said. They want your comment. I won't give it, I answered. But later, when the reporter called, I left a message. Tell them I'm alive. Tell them silence isn't surrender. Some women harden with age, not soften. Weeks later, charges were filed. 2 felonies, 1 misdemeanor. Probation and restitution likely, not prison. Still a record. Still proof I felt no victory. Only sadness. That the little girl who once feared storms now wielded lies so easily. That night, I wrote her a letter I'd never send. You didn't just steal money. You stole the shape of my life. You thought love could be used like rope. But you didn't erase me. I remain. I added a line to my notebook: I am alive. Someone lied. I will not be erased. They were wrong about me. Quiet isn't weakness. Stillness isn't surrender. The clerk at the post office blinked when I returned. She said, "It is." I smiled. I'm different now. Before leaving, I mailed 1 letter. To myself. A reminder, a breadcrumb back to who I was. At Lucy's flower shop, she waved me in with a clipping: elder fraud is real, but so is resilience. You're still standing, she said. Not the same piece, I replied. But yes, still here, she asked. What would you tell someone going through this? I thought, then answered, don't wait to be saved. Save yourself. And that's what I'll tell you too. They may try to write you out, but you get to write back. For the next woman, the one just realizing they tried to bury her, remind her she's a seed.